Sit back and relax, because today we are going to be talking about the history of one of the most interesting and odd champion builds that we have seen in leagues past, and this gameplay that we do afterwards might be one of the most difficult that we ever do, because today we are talking about Shyvana top lane. Now, just to give you a quick refresher, let's talk about what League of Legends was like in early Season 1 and Season 2. League of Legends was a little bit interesting and almost completely different compared to what you might see today, both in solo queue and in professional play, in the sense that the game was almost played entirely within the lanes. Laning 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2 bot lane versus opponents was considered by far and away the most important skill that someone needed to have. You needed to be able to CS incredibly well. You needed to know how to freeze minion waves or push minion waves, what you should be doing to manage and control minions, as well as being able to harass your opponent, poke them down, go for kills, out-trade them, and solo kill them as frequently as you possibly can, because for like the first 15 minutes of every game, you were playing just within the lane. There were kind of a couple of different reasons why this meta developed. Firstly, it just kind of made sense, obviously. I mean, League of Legends, that's what you do. You go down and you farm minion waves, so why not try and do that as effectively and as well as you possibly can? But there were a number of other things that contributed to this playstyle. Namely, the jungle was really weak. Jungling was much more difficult in the sense that you had to have blue buff on a lot of junglers to be able to survive jungling, as you needed to spam abilities to make sure that you could kill all your creeps. You also really relied on farming your jungle, which would always, I mean, it was a difficult thing to do. You would get taken super low and you didn't really have the opportunity to gank. You couldn't really gank because you would rarely be at full health and feel confident that you can go and gank someone. And on top of that, you know, if you go and try and gank someone and the gank fails, the way the jungle XP and everything worked at the time, you could really get screwed over in being set super far behind and then suddenly just feel like you're useless throughout a game. On top of that, though, objectives were also not really important at all. The dragon back then was just the dragon that gave everybody on the team gold. Everyone got like 300 gold or something while when a dragon ended up dying. And there, you know, there was Baron, I guess, at 20 minutes, but you couldn't really do Baron. That wasn't really something that mattered during laning phase. There was no Scuttlebug, there was no Rift Herald, there was no real reason for you to group up as a team in the early game. You really should just stay in lane, and with the lack of presence that most junglers had, you didn't really have to worry about doing anything other than laning and focusing on your 1 versus 1 against whoever it is you're playing against. This was especially true top lane, because while there were maybe some circumstances in bot lane where you might want to see if you can be aggro and then go take a dragon, or while there were plenty of mid laners like assassins and whatnot who could maybe push out waves and then go roam around to try and kill people in other lanes, top lane was the premier lane of just 1 versus 1. You had an incredibly diverse cast of champions top lane who were all meant to just see if they could outplay each other. They were all pretty much skill expressive matchups, and then you couldn't really get anywhere for you had to take teleport if you wanted to affect early objective fights. The few objective fights that did happen in the early game would happen at dragon or maybe around like the bot towers or something, so you had to take teleport to go and teleport down, help out, and doing so you just kind of forfeited your own lane. You forfeited any lead you had in terms of CS and kills and whatnot. So this is really the prevailing strategy that defined top lane in the first 2 years of League. Now, for these top laners, it was really fun and exciting. I mean, a lot of people like myself consistently say that we wish League of Legends was still like that, but to be honest, it did have some drawbacks. Namely, it kind of pigeonholed the champion pools that you were allowed to take top lane, because you needed a number of different things. Like, for example, you needed sustain. Because you were staying in lane and because a lot of people were taking Ghost or Ignite instead of teleport, you needed to have some form of sustain, whether that was a Nidalee heal, whether that was Cho'Gath's passive, whether that was something or even just the base bonus, whatever it was, the bonus healing on Fiora's passive, the bonus health regen. You needed something to sustain in lane, because you were going to be sitting in lane for long periods of time, and you didn't want to be recalling super often because that was a long walk back to lane. So you really needed to have some form of sustain. You also needed to be able to freeze minion waves. Typically, this meant that either you had sustain or you had some element of tankiness or, something that would allow you to freeze a minion wave. It didn't really work nearly as well if you were trying to take something like a Brand top lane or a Mage top lane for freezing minion waves, because you would take too much damage from the minions and then possibly struggle with sustain. But freezing minion waves and minion management was incredibly important. You could never push a minion wave. That was considered a death sentence and possibly the biggest mistake that a top laner could make. And of course, all of this put together kind of limited the number of champions that you would see people being taken top. Now, all these old strategies, they were bound to change eventually, because League of Legends is a team-oriented game, and eventually we were going to see more objectives put into the game. Eventually, we were going to see junglers get all these buffs, and sooner or later, this strategy was going to have to die. But the way that it did was really exciting. It kind of died with the birth of Moscow 5. M5 was a legendary esports organization that I, of course, made a big documentary on, which I hope that you guys have all seen. It's like the most popular video on my channel. And M5 were just incredible. They were incredibly enjoyable to watch because, for the most part, this laning strategy, as fun as it was 1 versus 1 and as fun as it was to play in sometimes, it was also kind of boring because you were just sitting in lane for 15 or 20 minutes and then eventually grouping to push down mid as 5 or something, right? I mean, you didn't have a lot of strategy beyond the individual play, and M5, when they came on the scene, they just blew everyone up and said, screw all this boring passive laning nonsense. We are going to win the game, and we're going to be so aggressive and so forceful in the early game with our movements and we're playing as a team and everything. We're going to win the game before you're able to even surrender. Now, again, there weren't really objectives in the game at the time. There wasn't Rift Herald, there wasn't Scuttlebugs, there wasn't an important Drake or anything like that, and First Tower Gold didn't exist either. So you really had a really interesting and odd thing happen when M5 just started pushing waves and leaving lanes. Like, that was the whole thing that M5 kind of pioneered, was that they were saying, who needs to freeze a wave? Who cares about getting a 20 CS lead? Who cares about out-CSing your opponent for the sake of getting gold? We're going to push out waves so we can intentionally leave lane and go steal jungle creeps, go help out other laners, go take whatever objectives there are available, be that something as important as a dragon or something as unimportant as a wraith or golem. We're going to leave lane and put so much pressure on the map that it's going to be impossible for you to outplay us because we're going to play so well together as a team. And of course, Moscow 5's top laner, Darien, was the guy that really pioneered this strategy, top lane. Again, it was incredible to see him do this. He was breaking all the conventions. Completely, it seems like the dumbest idea to a Season 1 player for a top laner to intentionally push a minion wave or to intentionally take someone top lane who doesn't have sustain. But because Darien was thinking, I'm not gonna just sit in lane 1 versus 1, be passive and boring. I'm gonna be aggressive. I'm gonna push out waves, go roam, join my teammates, help out the jungle, steal jungle creeps. And because he's thinking, I'm gonna have this completely different playstyle compared to what you've been seeing top lane, that allows him to play a lot of new champions. That allows him to play a lot of stuff that you haven't seen before. And that is where Shyvana came into this. Shyvana top lane was this strategy that was introduced by Darien because he was thinking, if I don't need sustain because I'm not going to be trading an opponent top lane 1 versus 1, and if I don't need to be able to freeze a minion wave, I can play Shyvana top lane. He has what he would end up doing is running an AD Shyvana top where he would max his W. He would just consistently spam W and all his abilities in lane, which he was able to do because she, of course, doesn't have any form of mana. And because his W allowed him to push minion waves, it just kind of let him have free control of the lane because he would just consistently push in a minion wave. If the enemy top laner tried to fight him, he would actually be able to out-trade him because the one downside to Shyvana is she doesn't have crowd control. She had no form of crowd control back then. So it kind of, that's a bit of a downside to her, but the good part, the trade-off there was that because she had no crowd control, she had all this damage in place of it. So if she was able to just 1 versus 1 someone, then she would out-damage the heck out of them. So the enemy top laner wouldn't really be able to do that. He would just push in the wave. The enemy top would have to sit sit under tower, farm CS, maybe try and freeze the wave or whatever, but they wouldn't really be able to do that much because Darien would then leave lane, go invade the jungle, steal jungle creeps, or try and kill the enemy jungler. He pioneered this idea of like priority in the lane and the idea that a top laner can roam and help out and support his team the same way that anyone else might be able to. And he did this without teleport often, and it was something that was really crazy to see, and I think you can see where this is going. That is what we're going to be seeing if we can go ahead and do today. We're going to be bringing back this old play style, and these are the runes we're going to be running. Conqueror in the main tree along with Precision, typical Precision stuff. Resolve in the secondary, and we're going to see if we can make AD Shyvana work, which might be a really stupid idea. Not only is Shyvana played exclusively as a jungler right now, and not really that good of a jungler either, but she's also played pretty exclusively as an AP character, which is really weird, but something that you kind of see because she has these really interesting scalings on her E in particular, which is an ability that you max first at the moment. So this probably isn't going to work. I'm not expecting this to work at all, but we're going to try and make it work anyway. Here we go. We lock in the Shyvana top lane up against a Nasus, which... oh, I don't know what to expect. I'll see though. Our strategy is we're gonna try and do the same thing that Darien did, just push in waves constantly, see if we can roam and help out our teammates or go steal creeps in the enemy jungle, and hopefully this doesn't end horribly. I'm almost somewhat happy we're playing against an Nasus because, hey, maybe he's gonna be weak enough in lane that we can still get a little bit of damage on him, something like that. Maybe not be awful in trades. I don't know. That could have been worse. That could have been worse. We go ahead and push this to his tower, and I'm gonna see if I can roam around. Maybe see if we can go for an invade on the Diana jungle. I don't know if she's at her red buff yet. Oh! Oh, please. Oh, dude, that's exactly what you do on Shyvana top lane. You go, you invade, you kill the enemy jungle before she can even do red buff, and we get a kill at level 2. Dude, I am the greatest League of Legends player who has ever lived. We took teleport, so we'll teleport back top lane, and now just chill out a little bit, farm up, and see if we can keep this lead snowballing. Oh. You want to fight Nasus? I kind of want to fight you, but I am kind of low, and I did not take health potions. We do have Rek'Sai here. Okay, you get the flash. Good job. That's good enough. Good enough. We are going to max our W here because even if that's not smart, I mean, it might not be smart. It might be smart if we're going AD, but either way, I want to stay true to this build and do, you know, exactly the same things that you did however many years ago it was now. Oh, Rek'Sai's back. Oh, and we get a kill on him. I don't know if he used teleport to come back to lane. He recalled and bought a mana crystal. Oh, we have a good CS lead, though. Look at that, 28 CS to 17. We can start taking turret platings. I don't know if I've ever been as happy as I am right now. Like, uh-oh. Okay, thank God he didn't wither us. We'll go ahead and keep on pushing this to Nasus's tower, though. Nasus is, like, kind of one of the champions that we might not want to be super aggro when it comes to just letting him sit on his own and free farm. That's probably not the smartest decision that we've ever made, but at the same time, it probably has a little bit of... Oh, good job, good job. Yeah, I was going to say, it probably will let us still, you know, be a little more useful in terms of running into the enemy jungle, hopefully setting up to get Rek'Sai some bigger and bigger advantages on this Diana. And he is totally repaying us a little bit and coming top lane and helping us get some more kills. We're even going to proxy farm this a little bit because I want to see if we can make sure that we get as many turret platings as physically possible, all 5. Which also, thank you teammates, by the way. I am so sorry. I hate everything right now because OBS broke. I lost the last half of this gameplay, and we have to go back through the replay and show you guys what happened because, spoiler alert, we managed to win this game. We won a game of Shyvana top lane in Season 10. Our final score ended up being 6-1-4, and it was, I mean, it was incredible. I'm in shock that we were able to win a game of Shyvana top. And I kind of want to express some of the thoughts that I have of, you know, what I think of this champion and how this game game ended up happening the way that it did, because I think we did get a little bit lucky, which is why I'm trying to not re-record this. Our strategy here worked out well, and we were able to do exactly what Darien did all those years ago. We were able to consistently push in this Nasus, roam, kill the Diana, you know, steal enemy jungle creeps, out-farm people, and have this big impact. But at the same time, it didn't feel nearly as impactful as it used to. And I think part of the reason for that is because this is not nearly as special as it used to be either. Like, the ability to just push in waves and get damage on the tower, that's something everybody does now. Everybody is trying to push in waves because they want to take first tower or they want to take turret platings. And that's the same deal with trying to go and steal enemy jungle creeps. Like, yeah, it's a useful thing if you're able to push in a wave and then go steal jungle creeps, but everybody's able to do that. Junglers are much better now, so they're able to go ahead and just go, you know, invade the enemy jungle, out 1v1 people. They can do that all on their own now. They don't really need so much help and support from laners. On top of that, you have other people like mid laners, AD carries, and supports who can all do the same thing as well. Supports are getting very aggro and very tanky. I mean, Bard might be a great example of this. He is someone that is built completely predicated on the idea of roaming into the enemy jungle or roaming around and not just sitting in his lane the way that people used to. So this strategy isn't nearly as unusual and different as it used to be. And on top of that, I feel like it's also something that probably isn't going to work in most situations, because we got a little bit lucky here in the sense that we were playing against a Diana jungle who's a fairly weak jungler, and that's not going to be, you know, you're not going to have as easy of a time invading against a Diana jungle every single match that you play if you try and do this sort of strategy multiple matches. Again, you might actually be able to make this work a little bit, because I don't know if there's many junglers that can still 1v1 a Shyvana in the early game, but we did get a little bit lucky in the sense that we were able to snowball our lead against their jungler so hard. Another thing that I'm kind of sad to report is that I think that Shyvana sadly just isn't as good, period. I think that she's one of those characters that has kind of fallen into the trap of, when she was introduced to League, she had all these new mechanics and these new ideas, like her Dragon Rage mechanic and all of these various things in her kit that back then were really new and exciting and fun. But nowadays, she is underwhelming compared to some of the other characters that have been introduced to the game since then. I mean, so many characters have so many, like, so much in their kits. They're so overloaded with mechanics that it makes Shyvana feel like she's Jax or something. I mean, she has really fallen behind the times compared to a lot of the other options that you have out there. And I think that's partially why she not only doesn't really work in this strategy anymore as a top laner, but she also doesn't even work as a jungler. The only way people are playing her is like as a cheesy AP jungle. You know, as sad as it may be, though, that Shyvana is no longer this really exciting character, I did have a little bit of a realization when making this video that I'm really glad that Darien was the one that brought League into the modern seasons. Like, there's a number of other strategies that we could have seen that would have taken us away from that old 1v1 mentality, but those other strategies would be so much less fun than this. I mean, you're thinking about some of the more annoying stuff that you've seen top lane, like the tank meta, like the teleport meta, like seeing Lulu top lane in that weird supporting style meta where all you do is kind of just, you know, you don't even bother trying to go for 1v1. You just focus on making sure you never die. Oh, I hated that more than anything. And you know, it could have been one of those. It could have been one of those metas that eventually replaced the 1 versus 1 focus that League of Legends used to have top lane. But I'm glad it was this one, because this is so much more fun. You know, Moscow 5, the only thing that was boring about their run of dominance in those early years was that they won. That's it. They just won every game. That's the only thing that sucked about them. It was like Ken in Super Smash Brothers or something, where the only part of the gameplay that's boring is the fact that you know who's going to win before the match even ends up starting, right? The ideas that they put forward and the gameplay that they actually had, though, it was so fun to watch. It was so fun to try and replicate in solo queue games. And this is like maybe my favorite legacy of what they left behind. The Shyvana, the aggro top laner, the Chad top laner who's going so aggro and is determined to make an impact in the game in spite of the fact that they're left on their island of top lane. It was just really fun for me to bring this back and have a fun little gameplay that I hope you guys all enjoyed watching as well. Who knows? Maybe this is better than I think it is, and maybe it'll come back at some point in the future. Maybe if Shyvana gets a minor rework or some sort of buff, I would definitely like to try it again. But anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching today's video. I will see you in the next episode of Does Blank Still Work? And I'm looking forward to it. I'm having a lot of fun making these, and I hope you're having a lot of fun watching them. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.